So I'm going to bring up our next storyteller. This is a person that I met through Mackenzie Elementary School because our boys are the same age, but I don't remember the details. But that's okay because once again, we stayed friends. Next up is Megan Van Buiten.
Thank you. My name's Megan. I live here in Wilmette. I don't know how to go after a really good telemarketing story. But I want to talk to you guys about my first time losing someone really close to me in my adolescence. And, the hard part about ever losing anyone, because like the fact is like all of us that are living on the planet right now are going to experience some kind of loss. Like, it's like you're human, and like at some point in your life, you will experience losing someone. And rewind, this is so strange because I'm like, there's 8s in this, like, so it was like 48 and then 88, and I'm going to rewind back to 1998. So talk about synchronicity. But yeah, so back in 1998, I was 17 years old. And just to give you guys a little overview on who I am, I'm from a big Irish Catholic family. I have 5 older brothers and 1 older sister. And my parents wanted 12 kids. I don't know, like, what the heck they were thinking. But, to make a long story short, there was this one particular week that just, like, is embedded into my mind and will be forever. And it was a really pivotal week in like my adolescence. It was my birthday. I just turned 17. I had gone to my first prom that week, and I remember that Sunday was Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, my family, again, big Irish Catholic family, like my parents love Ireland. Like they have a business where they like actually send people to Ireland. That's how much they love Ireland. And that Sunday, they actually went down to Celtic Crossings. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's in the city. They went down to listen to Irish music. And at the time, my family was pretty close together. Like, we were all in the Chicagoland area. And I decided not to go. I was like, I have the Spanish test. I didn't want to take Spanish. And I was like, why did I take Spanish? And so I ended up staying home, and my whole family went down to the city and celebrated Mother's Day with my mom. And then, fast forward into the week, I started my finals week, and that Monday, my mom mentioned that she wanted to get a steam cleaner back from my second to oldest brother, Pat. And so my brother, Pat, so like just to give you an overview, because he was an incredible, incredible person. And one that like really just like he lived in the city. He lived on State Street in a building that my uncle owned. And he had borrowed my mom's steam cleaner that week. And he was just like one of those guys that like lived kind of like in the moment. Like I remember going to a U2 concert, and like it was pop, and it was like one of my first concerts, and it was amazing, and it was with my brother. But he just was like one of those like salt of the earth guys, like laughed his head off like at every annoying funny movie, and you were just like, can you stop laughing? Like, why are you laughing? Can you just let me listen to the movie? Like in my adolescence mind, right? But he was just a salt of the earth guy, and he had borrowed a steam cleaner from my mom that week, and she couldn't get hold of him. And he's like Pat, right? Like he's like gonna call you back when he wants to. And so I didn't think much of it. And then fast forward throughout the week, then Thursday morning rolls around, and she's like, I need to get that steam cleaner back from your brother. And I was like, it's Pat, like, whatever. Like, a year ago, he was taking care of me, and, like, when you were in Ireland, and, like, we had our first kegger. Like, he's not gonna call you back. And so that day I went to school, and I'll never forget that day. Throughout the day, I was just, like, in my own stuff, as most 17-year-olds are. And I remember I was packing up my bags, and I was going to Carmel High School up north, like in Libertyville, Mundelein area, and I was packing up my bags, and someone from the administrative office came to grab me, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, my first reaction was like, I'm not a bad kid, but I'm not really a good kid either. And so I remember like thinking, oh crap, like, and so I remember walking down the hallway and turning the corner to the office, and I saw my brother Brendan. My brother Brendan's like the fourth from the top. And he had been working, like he had graduated, got a job at CDW, and like he was like my big brother. And I saw him, and I immediately thought, something has gone wrong with Pat. And so I remember walking closer to the office and thinking, what the hell happened? And I just, like, he said it. He just said, Megan, Pat's passed away. And I'll never forget that moment. It was probably the most traumatic moment of my entire life. And I remember getting into the car with him. He had a Volkswagen. We got in the car, and I was hysterical. But he was, like, very stoic, like, 'cause that's who he is. And he's got to keep it together because his little sister's, like, a fucking mess, right? And so we're driving down to my parents' house, which is about 10 minutes away. And I said, this happens to other families. This doesn't happen to our family. And I'll never forget when I said that, and he was just quiet, and he didn't say anything. And I remember just that week being like a really, really traumatic, hard week. Like the grief just overtook our family. My parents were just devastated. And I'll never forget that week, like lots of people sleeping on sofas, and we all sleep with our mouths open. So I like realized that we all are sleepers we sleep with our mouth open. And like that week was just horrible. Like Sarah McLachlan, and like lilies, it took me like 10 years to buy a lily because I hated the smell of them. And I guess the whole purpose of just telling this story, and I think it's poignant because in the moment, and when Amy asked me and called me and said, hey, we'd love for you to tell a story, and I was like, sure, I like to be uncomfortable. And so I wanted to tell this story because I think it's part of like the healing, right? Like the fact that like I can get up here today and tell this story without crying is so pivotal. And like the thing is like stories are meant for telling, you know? Like there's no story too hard to tell, and there's no story too hard to hear. And when we actually tell our stories and bring each other together, we actually connect. And that's like the part that's so special about life. And I guess this is one last final thought. And I want to tell you guys, you're probably like, well, what did he pass away from? A few weeks later, we got a knock on the front door, and his autopsy report came back, and it came back with cocaine and alcohol intoxication in his system. And at first, my parents were like devastated once again. It was almost like a re-grief. But I guess like the beautiful part about Pat is that he lived in the moment. He was exactly who he was with no apologies. And although he passed away in a really unexpected way, after he passed away, we started to get like letters from people in the city that were like, you know, Pat helped me through a really hard time. I wanted to let you know. He like gave me money when I was like in a really bad bind. And there was just like this outpouring. And I think that happens when great people pass away or cross over to the other side. Like sometimes it's like the things that you don't see. It's like the relationships that people have that you don't know about, that you're so blown away by. And you know, at the end of the day, like last night I went to this fan talk with Lisa D'Amour. It's like, it was amazing. And she talked about like, when you're able to like let your kids move through trauma and traumatic experiences, like I did at 17 years old, you allow them to change the trajectory of their life and have freedom. And so as much as like it sucked losing him, and we all just miss him, I learned so much about his being and who he was, and I also learned that like without him crossing over at such an early age, I wouldn't be who I am today. So thank you guys. I appreciate you hearing my story.